Good morning, everyone. This is Dana Parsons with LeadingAge Virginia. Thank you for joining us for our Coronavirus Weekly member update. We haven't had one in a while, but we were receiving some questions related to nursing home group activities and communal dining. So we thought it would be a good opportunity for us to get together and discuss some of your questions. So I want to introduce Janine Fink-Boyle, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs with LeadingAge National. And we also have Courtney Hales-Richards, the Division Director of Long-Term Care with the Office of Licensure and Certification. So we are going to do our best to stay within 30 minutes. If we do run over, we hope you'll be able to stay on with us for a little bit longer. But over to you, Janine. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dana. Good morning, everybody. I am glad to be here, and Jody sends her regrets, but you'll hopefully be able to hear her later today at our 3:30 call or in the next day or so. So I know that there's been a lot of questions, focusing around what residents and staff can and cannot do in activities and communal dining, as well as questions regarding privacy and the asking of visitors for vaccination status. So I'm going to try to kind of focus on the between CMS and CDC, and then also kind of talk to you about some of the questions that we still don't have answers to, but that we have been advocating to CMS to get some specific answers and some guidance, whether it's in an FAQ or some edits to the current guidance, and that has been both to CMS and CDC that we've been speaking to in the past 2 weeks. So the first thing is that let's just kind of lay the groundwork and talk about vaccinated resident and an unvaccinated resident. And so remember what the definition is of a vaccinated individual, and remember the vaccinated individual is 2 doses, 2 weeks past the second dose, then you are fully vaccinated. So that would be if you had Pfizer or Moderna, or if you had the 1 dose, which is J&J, then it would be 2 weeks post that 1 dose, so that you'd be fully vaccinated. So in the guidance that's put forth, the CMS memo and through CDC, they use vaccination as vaccinated and unvaccinated residents. And so if you just kind of straight on the slide, so if you don't know vaccination status, and so here's where I think there's been lots of questions, is that in the guidance, it states resident, right? It usually always talks about resident or visitor. It doesn't talk about staff. But between conversations that we've had in our small group with CMS, which I've heard on the stakeholder calls that CMS has held nationally, that they are putting together residents, staff, and visitors as one kind of lump, if you want to put it that way. So if you obviously most of your staff, their vaccination status, the vaccination status of your residents, and so if you know what the vaccination status is, then you can kind of follow through the guidance for dining and activities, and then obviously visitation. And so if the vaccination status is unknown, then obviously you're gonna go with the unvaccinated status for that part of the guidance. And so any part with visitation, let's just kind of focus back to what came out at the end of April. If you're able to have visitation, so I'm going to leave the outbreak status or positive cases to the side. I'm going to talk about the fact that you have visitors that come in. Nursing homes, first and foremost, are obviously, you're encouraging visitors to be vaccinated, but you do not need to actually obtain any card, any photocopy, any other documentation of the proof that that visitor has been vaccinated. And so if a individual, a care partner, a loved one, a family member is going to visit a resident and they are both vaccinated and they're going to visit in an individual room, or you have a visitation space that is not a common area or where people would be coming in and out and sitting and spending time. So the visitor and the resident are both vaccinated. They are then able to take their masks off and not have social distancing. And so again, the key part, and if you look at the slide, is that they are alone in the visiting space. If they are going to move around your organization and move around your nursing home where they're going to pass other staff or residents or other visitors, then they must mask and social distance at all times. Because the assumption is that even though those two individuals are vaccinated, and they're fully vaccinated, you don't know people that they could potentially be interacting with as they go throughout the nursing home. So now if the resident or the visitor is not fully vaccinated, so the visitor comes in, they say that they're not vaccinated, or that resident has chosen not to be vaccinated, or they're in the process, so they've only maybe had one immunization, they're not fully vaccinated yet, then you have to have your source control, you have to have social distancing through the whole visit. And that includes if they're in the room. So again, not fully vaccinated. The other part, and you're going to go back to the visitation guidance, is having physical contact or touch. So that was laid out with visitation so that if you have a vaccinated resident and a vaccinated visitor, they obviously are in close contact and they're not wearing their mask and they can have physical touch. But if someone is unvaccinated, or the visitor is unvaccinated, and it's known that they can still have physical contact, but again, it's a very quick hug or a quick hand holding, and then obviously there needs to be hand hygiene and go back to making sure that you have social distancing after that. So again, that goes back though to the visitation guidance. So I'm hoping that helps out. Now, here's where there's a question, and there's some questions in another couple slides, is that what has come forward is that if there is an activity, right? So Dana, or Paula, can you move to the next slide? Right, okay, perfect, thank you. So where you're gonna have an activity, you know that the staff members vaccinated and the residents are vaccinated, and so they can have a particular activity, whether it's a movie or a happy hour or whatever that is, and all the residents that are there, all the staff that are there are fully vaccinated. Then you do not need source control, so no masks, and you do not need physical distancing. What has been a question that's come up is that if a resident then comes into the activity as it started and sits down, and you don't know that status of the resident, then everyone needs to then obviously put on their masks and do some physical distancing. Where we're starting to get questions, and what we've been asking for clarification from CMS, is that does the individuals that are there in the activity, they're not social distancing, but the person comes in, do they all now need to social distance? And does obviously the individual that comes in, so then you're changing the whole part of the activity. What we did ask and did get clarification is that you can cohort activities or dining based on vaccination status. So I know that when the guidance first came out, there was a lot of questions on whether that would be a resident rights issue or privacy issue and so forth. But our understanding is that you can do that. So you can cohort activities or dining based on the vaccination status. Now, the next part of the question that we've been getting, and I do not have an answer for, is the fact of that if you have visitors that are coming to activities. So as you see on this particular slide, what's that impact? And so if a visitor comes to activities, it has not been outlined by CMS, nor do we have any direct answer. So if a visitor is fully vaccinated, the way that it is written is that a visitor in an activity, it's not outlined. So right now it assumes that visitor needs to keep their mask on, and everyone in the activity would need to keep their mask on, because in the guidance, it only talks about visitation in the room alone. It doesn't focus in a group setting or a communal dining setting. And so I just want to be clear that I don't have an answer for that. And so again, they're then treated as someone that is unvaccinated. And so that has to then focus in on going back to social distancing and masking. So I'm hoping that answers some questions. I see there are 12 pieces in the chat, but I know, Courtney, you are fantastic in answering questions. So I'm hoping that some of those are being answered. But the activities and dining follows the same. So again, it's that if there are individuals that are in that dining, communal dining or that dining space, and there's someone that is not vaccinated, then you have to use source control and social distance. And I'm hoping that that kind of helps. So you kind of keep everybody in the same, so residents and staff follow the same guideline, even though I know that the CMS memo doesn't focus in on staff, but the word that we've gotten from CMS and what they've said nationally is that you have to have everyone as one link, if that makes sense. So Dina, I don't know if you wanna turn it over to Courtney. I know Courtney's answering questions in there. And if there's specific, again, I'm talking on the federal level through CMS and the CDC guidance. I don't know if you wanna
Yeah.
have Courtney talk, and then I can look through the questions while Courtney talks and see if there's how I can answer some of them.
Yeah, thank you, Janine. I think that it would be great if we could move over to Courtney. Thank you so much for putting some responses in the chat box. But would you like to go ahead and maybe respond to some of these or provide some remarks, and then we can kind of open it up? So over to you, Courtney.
Good morning, everyone. I'm reading back through the chat and answering some of the questions for you all, and I do have answers. If I may start, I want to go to Miss Tammy J, and the question was, what about residents going on outings in the community with family? Are there any specific recommendations for protocols upon return, vaccinated or unvaccinated? There has not been any specific protocols for residents that go out with family. Upon return, they should still be screened. And if they have been exposed to COVID or any sort, we will follow the facility protocol. And if they haven't, they should be fine to return to their room, provided that they haven't been gone more than 24 hours. Miss Patricia, what if our assisted living and nursing is in the same building? Can they attend the same event if everyone has been vaccinated? I am not sure about the assisted living side, but for the long-term care side of it, if everyone has been vaccinated, they can attend the same event. If there is even one resident or staff member in the event that we don't know the vaccination status or they haven't been vaccinated, then everyone must use source control during that event. Cheryl K, Miss Cheryl K, do we need to social distance if plexiglass is dividing the table? I would think this is more of an opinion that you still, well, the plexiglass is dividing the two of you, so I believe that is the social distancing of it, but I will look into that and get a response back to Dana and Miss Janine for you. Miss Patricia, in other words, can you put assisted? Okay. I think I answered that question a little with I answered that question. Sorry. Miss Sarah, for residents that are socially distanced in the dining room with an unvaccinated employee present, well, I don't think the social distancing is the issue in this. The issue is someone is unvaccinated. So with our guidance, if anyone is unvaccinated, residents, staff, anyone, everyone has to then use source control and practice social distancing. So I don't want us to, steer away from, I know the guidance speaks more towards residents, but like Ms. Janine said in the beginning, COVID really doesn't have a name on it. So although it titles it speaks towards residents, it is referring to us all, staff, family members, anyone in that facility at the moment. If we can't verify the vaccination status, or if we know they're unvaccinated, that changes things. Everyone must then use source control and practice social distancing. If a individual serving or preparing food is not vaccinated, they should be using source control as well. To answer that question, Ms. Tammy. Ms. Tabitha, the answer to your question is yes. Um, Even if the staff is wearing appropriate source control and they have not been vaccinated, guidance says if they're in the same area, everyone will have to be that. Everyone will have to wear source control at that point and practice social distancing. Did anyone else have any other specific questions for me? I think I did answer everything.
So, Courtney, thank you for those. So, there's a similar question that's come in about residents in a continuing care retirement community that has independent living, assisted living, and long-term care. Can they all attend the same social event at the same time? For example, assisted living residents and long-term care residents in the same social event if they're all vaccinated, and I would include independent living in there as well.
They should be. They all should be able to attend a social event if they are vaccinated. The only concern would be if the vaccination status of a staff member in there, a family member, or another resident was unknown. Then everyone would have to wear a mask and practice social distancing.
I completely agree with Courtney. The only thing I would just add is that just remembering that independent living residents or individuals in a continuing care retirement community, just making sure that the privacy and concerns of asking. So how would you know that those individuals are vaccinated? I would, leave that up to how the community makes that decision.
Yes.
And,
Miss, oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead, Courtney. You go ahead.
Miss Sarah's question, the guidance that has come out speaks towards residents. It doesn't really speak towards visitors anywhere. But my take on it is COVID really doesn't have a name on it. Um, if we're doing something for residents, we should still be doing the same thing for staff that are in the area, for visitors that are coming into the space of the residents.
And another question, what about outdoors if either a resident or participant or staff is not vaccinated?
Well, for outdoor activities, if a person is not vaccinated and they are unvaccinated and they are participating in this activity, source control should still be used because they're within proximity and they could, spread the infection, especially if we don't know their vaccination status or if they're unvaccinated. So they should still be wearing source control.
Another question, has there been an update about how many entrances are open at one time? Do you still need just one entrance?
There hasn't been an update about how many entrances should be open.
When can we expect clarification on the questions and discrepancy that Janine has listed?
So that is a very good question. So last week, Jody and I put together a pretty lengthy email to CMS and CDC. We got a response by the end of the week from both CMS and CDC saying that they are looking at it, but it's going to take some time. So I do not have an answer for you for that. But just know that they do have the questions, and we did get a response that they're looking at them, and we did bring it up again yesterday on our stakeholder call. I'm sorry, I don't have an actual time frame.
Yeah, and we'll certainly get those clarifications out once those are received. Another question, does DSS have any guidance specific to assisted living dining rooms? We haven't seen any information about that, but we can certainly consult with them and get back with you if they have any clarifications about that. I wondered, here's another one. To be clear, we are saying a vaccinated assisted living resident can attend an independent living activity. I think that we're going to have to get some clarification on that from DSS, but could ask it in a different way. Can a nursing home resident attend an independent living activity?
Can nursing home residents attend an independent living activity? If they are vaccinated, I wouldn't see why not, but I can get clarification on that for you.
Thank you. Next question, is there any CMS guidance on vaccinated residents still needing to be in 14-day observation status on admission?
So I have to figure out, I'm trying to remember which memo this is in. I need to go back and look at that and see.
It is in a memo somewhere. I can't
Right.
minimize the screen to get to it, but there is a memo. The one piece that I remember is if you couldn't verify the vaccination status, they would be in quarantine. But it's another piece to it. I just have to get my hands on the document.
Thanks. We'll follow up with that document. If another question, if the resident is able to sign out and go off the unit, they should be able to attend programs in other parts of the building, and the community allows non-independent living residents to participate. Not really a question, more of a statement. Next one, they do not need to be quarantined if they have not had close contact and are fully vaccinated. I wondered if we might be able, since we have about 8 minutes left, open this up for members to actually speak and not put questions in the chat box, if that would work for you, for Courtney and Janine.
I'm fine with that.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, Alexandria, would you like to come off of mute and ask your question?
Sure, I don't mind, and I apologize. This may not be the right forum. I know this information just came out. However, I wanted to ask if there was any clarification on when the requirements based off of the memo that was sent out yesterday about the final rule for vaccination and requirements for reporting. I know reporting will start June 14th, but was unsure if there was any information on when the requirement for offering the vaccine would start.
So Dina, can you go to, I think Jody put a slide in here, so I think it's one more on here.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. So so remember it's June 13th, 11:59. Just want to clarify that you have to have it in by, it's 11:59. So then when they start pulling it the beginning of that week, just make that one point. So let me just make sure you're asking when does the requirement to offer the vaccine officially start?
Correct.
Right. So there's not a specific date in there. It's just the reporting. You know what, let me go back and look and see if there's any other language in there. I will be very honest, I did not get a full analysis of this yesterday afternoon after it came out. So I don't have everything from A to Z on it yet. And if I don't remember that actually having a date, though, that was part of this piece.
Correct, and no worries. I definitely want to give everyone time to analyze it. Just figured while we were here and had Courtney's attention, if that information was available, it'd be a good time to ask. So thank you.
No problem. I will tell you this. If you'll be on the 3:30 call today, I'll make sure that that's answered. How about
Thank
that?
you.
No problem.
And that's the Leading Age National call that you, if you haven't registered for that, you would need to register. So if anyone is not have that information, you can email me and I will send it to you to make sure that you're on the afternoon call. So any other questions?
Dana, this is Carrie. I have a question for Courtney.
Yes.
With the discussions that we've been having and the questions about residents attending programming on different parts of the campus and with other levels of care, is it correct to interpret if a resident is in the healthcare setting and is capable to sign out and go off the unit, they would have access to anything they normally would outside of the healthcare unit, and then when they return, we would just need to screen and verify per protocol when they return? It wouldn't matter if they were somewhere on the same campus or if they were at a restaurant down the street. Is that correct?
Once they leave, let's say the facility, they would still have to be screened as anyone else coming back in. So the answer would be yes.
Okay, thank you.
I am putting the registration link. I was able to get that for Leading Age's afternoon call today at 3:30 that Janine had mentioned. But I'm also happy to email it if you're not able to get it from the chat. But I'm really glad we were able to get through all this information today. I want to thank Janine and Courtney so much for that. We actually still have 3 minutes left. So if there are any other questions, if you'd like to come off mute and ask those. Okay. Well, this recording of today's call will be in our newsletter tomorrow, along with any clarifications that we have by tomorrow with the questions that are still outstanding. Registration has opened up for our Leading Age virtual conference, June 8th through the 10th. You can go to our website to register for that, and I will put that in the chat. But with that said, if there are not any other questions, we'll go ahead and end the call. But I want to thank everyone so much for being on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine and Courtney.